I wish to talk to you about what the governments do, what is public service, what the IAS do they do a good job, do they do a bad job? And in this context, I think there's some questions which come to mind, to everyone's mind, so to say. What is government? What is public service? What are the government servants, the public servants, the politicians, the civil servants, the IAS? What does the IAS do? Do they do a good job, or do they do a bad job? How is the state of public service in the country? So that is the context I'll talk to you about. The central to that is the concept of the public service. What is public service? Public service, to my mind, essentially is, we can see the manifestation thereof in two big ways. One, when the public servants work at the field level in the trenches, so to say. You administer the laws of the country, you administer the policies, execute them, you also implement a lot of development and other programs. Whether you are working as Tehsildar or whether you are working as subdivisional officer or whatever. And in the field, so those jobs, do you do well or do you carry out them in the larger public interest or not? Do you serve the public? So that's one set of public interest manifestation. And the other one is when you rise higher up in the services, you reach to higher positions, you participate in the policy making of the country. Policy making is essentially the political executive, but you also serve them as advisors and all. So at that level, do we make good policies for the country? Do we decide on, adopt those policies which make the country progress faster, people develop faster, they become more equal or so? So that is the second level or second manifestation of what the public policy or the public interest is all about. That is where I think the entire concept of public service or public servants, I think, gets sort of to be seen. I joined the IAS in 1983 and worked through at all levels in my life. I first joined in the district of Chittorgarh in Rajasthan as a subdivisional officer. A subdivisional officer does very basic public service functions. It helps maintaining the land records, sorts out the disputes, take care of the management of public services at the ground level, municipal services, revenue services, law and order kind of thing. Don't allow public property to be trespassed, take care of all those things. Work with the people at the very basic and the lowest level. Then I rose to occupy higher positions. I was district collector and magistrate of Rajsamand district in Rajasthan. Then I did many of the jobs as heads of departments. I managed development of agriculture in the state of Rajasthan as director agriculture. I ran and managed the bus service as managing director of the Rajasthan roadways. I did many of other jobs, including education. So I was special secretary education, dealing with the education empowerment and education development, the school level or something. I also worked as the registrar of Rajasthan University, so I'm speaking here in a university function. So as university registrar, I saw how the education is spreading at the higher levels in university things. So a lot of jobs at the field level, but at the head of the department function and all. I also managed the oil processing plants as MD of Rajasthan Oil Fed. Then I moved on to Delhi, where you work at the national level. So I worked as the director in the finance ministry, dealing with the external commercial borrowings, dealing with the World Bank negotiating loans for them and with them. I also managed the state finances as joint secretary in the finance ministry. And then later on, I came back to Rajasthan to manage the Rajasthan's financial or finances, so to say. And finally, I went to the World Bank where I had the global exposure and came back finally to serve as the finance secretary and the economic affairs secretary of the country. I think I can talk about the public services, I can talk about the public interest, and it is in that context that I would sort of delineate before you the entire public interest and public functions as they work. Let me bring the perspective from the field, the implementation of the policies and the laws and the programs of that. That is where I think the officers come to face the real good test of their abilities and performance. If you do a good job, you administer these laws, policies, and programs in an unbiased, impartial manner, without fear or favor, without being partial to anyone, taking care of the poor, the underprivileged, and the downtrodden, weak of the society, then you do a good job. You face many challenges as well. There are a lot of vested interest. Ministers may ask you, the politicians may ask you to favor their party men, their family men, their constituents, and their co-religionists, so to say, the caste guys. And if you fall prey to that, then you do a bad job. But if you develop or you have that spine, that determination to say no to such things, then you may, you would be serving the public interest well and do a good job as the administrator, as a public servant. In later period of your life, when you participate at the policy making level, then you have a different role to play. At that stage, the decision making lies in the hands of the political executives, the ministers, the prime ministers, the chief ministers, and others. And your role is more of an advisor. You advise what should be done, what should not be done. The politicians don't have all the facts before them, all the dimensions of that. How does it impact the law, the finances of the country? How does it impact different sections of the people? They may not even many times be aware about whether it's hitting the constitutional rights, the fundamental rights, or the expectation that you bring into the country, a good public order and development. It is at that level when you provide all these inputs to them, and if you do a competent job, bring all these things, you help in making the policy better and avoid bad policy choices. And if you don't do that rigorous analysis, then you may end up getting wrong policies made in the country. And that is where, again, if you run into situations where the politician or the minister is not accepting a sound kind of advice, my experience suggests that mostly if you do a good job, a rigorous job, chances are that the sound advice would be accepted and you would be able to see through that a good thing is done, a good policy is made in the country. But if it does not happen, if the vested interest prevails too much, then maybe there are situations where you are required to even sort of say goodbye to the civil service and fight out the wrong which has been done, sitting outside or going outside the government. The role public servants play, the IAS officers play in this entire process of implementing the laws, policies and the programs well in the field and later on advising the policy better is very important. If they do a good job, then they can have a lot of satisfaction that they have served the people well. They can have very sound sleep, so to say. But if they don't, or they succumb to these pressures or temptations of corruption, of making money, or satisfying the wrong intentions of the politicians, so to say, they might become rich, they might become politicians themselves in time to come, or but they may also get jailed. You saw what happened in Nepal recently. The years of bad governance, corruption, etc., ultimately led to the rise of the Gen Z, the youngsters, which and then those politicians being hounded out, the houses being burnt, and sort of their ill-gotten wealth being reclaimed back to the back for the people. So depending upon how you move and you carry out your responsibilities, the outcomes may be very different for you. But how do you take it will depend upon how do you shape up your future, or the country, and your own peace of the mind and satisfaction. Similarly, if the choice of policy making becomes bad, for example, even in the country, in our earlier period of time, we went for the socialist pattern of society. We went for public sector dominance. We decided against the private sector being sort of given the right kind of space. We killed entrepreneurship, the growth suffered, the people's welfare suffered, so to say. And by 1990, the situation was that many countries in the world had advanced, whereas we had not really done that well. This led to, as many of you would know, the situation where even our gold had to be placed to keep that we don't default on our payment obligations. It made people suffer. Then in 1991, a lot of good policy making happened, and it led to re-energization of the country and its growth and development process. And we were doing, and we have been doing, relatively much better than earlier after that. If you contextualize in the current context also, if you would see that the times today are very different. The digitalization is taking over the world, everything is becoming digital, and the environment, the energy is getting a massive transition. In this, if we adopt the right kind of policies, we'll serve our country well in times to come. But if we don't, then we may not actually be laying foundation for the future of the country well. In this context, see how the laws like the gaming, for that matter, the real gaming, which has been banned by the parliament, by the country recently, is it good for growth? Is it good for employment generation? Is it good for the future of entertainment in that sense? And the competition also, to say, how did we pass the farm laws which had to be taken back? The kind of labor laws we did, which have not been enacted, which have not been implemented after 4 or 5 years. Our energy transition is relatively much weaker today than compared to many other countries. Norway doesn't produce a single EV car, but there is a 90% transition of the new vehicles in the EV space. So what kind of policies we adopt for future today will decide how India will be going for in future. So I think policy making makes a lot of difference. You hear a lot about how Americans are conducting the policy today, while they have brought the forward-looking laws like stable coins have been legalized, and very soon you would see the dollar literally replaced by not any other currency but by stable coins. as the medium of doing exchange and payments in the world. So that's a good policy is being made, but at the same time you see what President Trump is doing in terms of trade, tariffs and all, killing virtually the global trade system and also putting the American consumers at a lot of loss and pain in times to come. It would have a boomeranging effect. So policy making is extremely important, and the civil servants play a very good role. By the way, the ministers are also technically civil servants, so to say, public servants, and in accordance with the law. So how they together do it all makes the big difference. And that is where I come to my final sort of comments today. There is a lot of talk about the steel in the IAS, that the steel frame is getting lost and getting corroded or something. My sense is that if the IAS officers and the wider body of the civil servants do their job well, both the types of jobs which I described, implementing the laws, regulations, the policies and the programs without fear, favor, and in the wider interest of the public, and saying no effectively in case when the political pressures and otherwise come to bear upon them, they display the steel in the eye, the IAS steel is in the forefront. Likewise, if they advise the right kind of policy making and make sure that wrong policies don't get adopted because of the lack of sound advice which they need to give, and make sure that the policy making moves into the right direction, I think they again, by saying no constructively, and by using this as a means of creative destruction and creative policy making by sort of adopting a firm, resolute stand, that is where again you display the steel in yourself, and the public servants give a good account of themselves. So I think that's what this steel is all about. I would say that you have great opportunity in the civil services. This is something very different. The private sector has its own excitements, but the public service also have enormously great opportunities to serve people and draw a lot of satisfaction. I think if you join that, if you opt for this and do a good job displaying steel and the firm resolution and serve the country well, you would be doing very well. Thank you very much.